Good morning. I'm Sharon Bowles, lay servant here at Northern Hills. Today's reading is from Colossians, 3rd chapter, the 15th verse, and I'm reading out of the NIV. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you are called to peace, and be thankful. This is the word of the Lord.
Would you bow with me for a prayer? Father, with the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So, we are in Advent. And of course, there are 4 sections of Advent, 4 themes to the Advent season. And each pastor here is taking one of those, and we have a lay servant preaching on the last one. I have peace, and we're talking about peace today. I might have said this already. I won't be preaching again until the 24th, so I have a little bit of a respite. Who was smiling over there? I heard someone go, yay. Who was that? It was like, thank goodness. All right. A little bit of a respite, and then we will kick off the new year. Now, this whole rotation we had the idea for and developed back in August. We did the entire Impact series and talked about that at a pastoral meeting. Now, you would think that at a pastoral meeting where we're discussing what we're going to be preaching on, it would be a solemn event with prayer and candles and incense and robes. No, we were just a meeting. We were just hanging out. And we just had this meeting, and then we went on to talk about Advent. And we worked out the idea for the rotations and the logistics and who was be where on what day, and then we started talking about topics. And I was brand new to Northern Hills. I'd been here a little over a month. And so since I was the new guy, I couldn't just jump up and say, ooh, I want peace. I want peace. But in my mind, I was thinking that. I really want to talk about peace. Peace is something that I like. Love, joy, and hope. We get those every year. It's no big deal. But peace is what I really want to talk about. And then finally, what seemed like a long, long time of people kind of talking about what they desired to talk about, Lupini goes, Patrick, you want to take peace? And I was like, she read my mind. Yes, peace. I can talk about peace. And so I'm excited to be talking about peace, not only because it's what I wanted to talk to you about, also I just like the topic of peace. I feel it's rich. Now, when I realized that now that that I've been chosen and have chosen to talk about peace in front of you, that I had to actually say something, I was thinking about peace, and this is the first thing that popped into my mind. Si vis pacem parabellum. Si vis pacem parabellum. It is Latin, so this is not the first, but the second Latin lesson you have today. This is attributed or paraphrased from a Roman general named Vegetus. And Vegetus wrote a military strategy document in the 4th or 5th century BC, and this translates to, if you desire peace, prepare for war. Now, this is a paraphrase of Vegetus. He actually had a much longer statement in his writings. And some people believe that he got it from Platonic writings, that Plato came up with it. Others believe that it's actually Sun Tzu who wrote this, and Vegetus just kind of realized it later. But at the same time, si vis pacem parabellum, if you desire peace, prepare for war. I have to tell you, I agree and disagree with it. But I saw this in action in my household, not this past week, but the week before. It was the week of Thanksgiving. My wife's twin and her family was in town for 7 days. Yes. Let me just emphasize that real fast. 7 days. Monday to Monday. My wife's twin sister, her husband, her 3 boys, ages 7, 5, and 2, were in the house. They slept at my house. And we lived into this, si vis pacem parabellum, for that week. We prepared. We refinished furniture. We refinished the front door. We bought pillows. We set up new beds. We washed all the towels. We washed all the sheets. We went shopping for snacks. We hit all the major food groups. We hit the H-E-B food group, the Costco food group, the Walmart food group, the Trader Joe's food group. We had gummy snacks. We had cookie snacks. We had salty snacks. We had chips. We had granola snacks. We had sandwich snacks. We had any kind of a bar you could imagine. If it came in bar form, we had it in our pantry. And we had the adult version of those snacks. We had the guacamole, we had the salsa, we had the queso, we had the French onion dip, we had the spinach artichoke dip, we had all the chips and the pita chips and the crackers. We had the cheeses. We were ready to go. And we failed. We had all the snacks, we had all the preparation done, and still there was fighting at our house. Go figure that. With just 5 kids in the house for a week, with no school, there was fighting. Weeping, gnashing of teeth, and then there was also the adults who were weeping and having gnashed teeth. All those things happened. We lived into CV's Possum Parabellum, and though I think we were prepared as we could be, fighting still happened. This is the holiday season. It's the time that we're preparing for the coming of the Prince of Peace. Why does it feel like battle sometimes? Why does it feel like we could be in a war zone? If you want to see what I think is the closest thing we can get to a war zone here in San Antonio, go to this location. If you want to see like war and violence happening, go to the parking lot of Target. I have seen grandmotherly, sweet, give you a gift, bake you some brownies, tell you how sweet you are, pinch your cheek, driving down that parking lot at 45 miles an hour, trying to get to that parking spot. And the way that families respond to her as they're diving out of the way is just not Christmas. And if you want to see the real Thunderdome, go inside. There's no rules in that place. You can be shopping and someone just bumps you with their cart, and they'll act like it's your fault. I've been looking at a product, last one, thinking, somebody might like that, and dude just rolls up, takes it, like while I'm looking at it, takes it, puts it in his cart, like, looks back, yeah, that's right, got the last one. There's no rules in that place. And I mean, it's crazy in there. Like, why is it that this time of a holiday season, as we're preparing for the Prince of Peace, that it feels like we're at war? Well, it feels like we're having to stress and to prep and do all of these things. Now, this is the phrase that the angels sing over the shepherds the night that Christ was born. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill toward men. This is the holiday season shortened and paraphrased. This is what we desire as individuals and as a culture during the Christmas season. All our songs are talking about this. Glory to God, peace on earth, and goodwill toward men. Why does it not feel like we're practicing it? Now, I did a little research for you, and there was a Norwegian group that did a study, and they say in the last 2,000 years, there's been 14,351 wars for a total of 3.63 billion deaths. That's half our Earth's population. And if you took the resources in preparation and in recovery of those wars, and you turned it into gold, that it would wrap around the Earth at the equator, and that gold belt would be 97 miles wide and 33 feet thick, solid gold. If we didn't have wars, we could figuratively wrap our earth in gold. That same Norwegian study had an article attached to it, and it said that it's unconfirmed, but in the last 2,000 years, there might have been two where war did not exist on our earth. 2 in 2,000 plus. But Christ came to be the Prince of Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. It doesn't add up. But you might be saying, well, Patrick, yeah, but that's the entire earth. Christ came to be my personal Prince of Peace, my personal goodwill toward men. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let me ask you some questions. Do you believe in God? Yes, all right. I appreciate that answer. That's good. Okay. I'm assuming that if you're here, you believe in God, or your family made you come. I'm good with both those. I've been in both those brackets before. Let me ask you this, though. Do you know God? Subset of the first. Yeah. Do you know God? Yeah. Some of you like, yeah. Some of you like, well, I'm getting to know Him. We're talking. We're playing racquetball. It's cool. We're hanging out. Either way, I'm good with your answer. So then let me ask this. If you answered yes or any kind of a subset of yes to the first two questions, let me ask you the kicker. Do you have a deep and consistent, abiding sense of peace in your life? In the end, answers range. Some of you are like, yeah. If that's you, awesome, congratulations. Write a book. If you're at no, hey, I understand. Totally agree. And if you're at maybe, then that's where I'm at. I'm at the sometimes. I'm still trying to figure out how I develop myself as a person spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. How do I grow and be hungry and at the same time have a sense of peace in my life? I haven't figured it out yet. When I figure it out, I'll write a book and you guys can buy it. So that's the dichotomy we're at. How do we have peace in this world or peace in our lifetime? Well, luckily, we have some resources. I got some scriptures here for you. Our Advent reading was John 14, and I give you another offering from that same chapter. This is Jesus talking. Peace I leave you with, peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. What I like to focus you on are these first two phrases. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. See, I don't believe that Jesus facilitates peace in our life. He doesn't send us somewhere to find peace. He doesn't say, hey, go read this book, go meet this person, go listen to this TED Talk, and then find peace in your life. No, He does something different. He says, come to me. Go to Christ, and He has peace. How He gets it, I don't know. But He's the Prince of Peace. He is the source of peace. It's something that He has or He owns, that He is willing to give to us. And let me share this next verse. Just 4 chapters later, let me guess, 19 minus 4. Let me have 5 chapters later. I should be able to do math. Jesus was before another person that we mentioned today in a creed, and that is Pontius Pilate. Pilate, at the time of Christ's death, was the Roman governor. He was known for cruelty. He was known for his disdain for the Jewish people, which is why we say phrases like suffered under Pontius Pilate. And Christ was before Pilate, and Pilate was basically determining whether Christ would live or die. And he's not getting the reactions from Christ that he usually gets as he's questioning people. And so Pilate, right before this, says to Jesus, you know, I have the power to set you free or the power to crucify you. And Jesus' response was, again, not like Pilate expected. He responds with this: you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Christ, displaying a sense of peace. I almost see Him delivering this line with a yawn. Like, you know what? You have no power over me if it wasn't given to you from above. A sense of peace in the face of a man who has life and death at his fingertips, and shows it at least 3 times that day that he can put people to death on his whim. But Christ had a sense of peace in the midst of that. But you're saying, yeah, but that's Jesus. He's the God-man. He's the Prince of Peace. He's the Son of God. He's the one who can possibly see the future. Of course he has peace. He knows what's going on. Okay, well, let's talk about Paul. Your verse today is, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to be peace and be thankful. Now, you would expect that the guy who wrote this would have lived a life of wine and roses, chocolates and bonbons, R&R all the time, Netflix series after Netflix series after Netflix series, right? That's not the life that Paul lived at all. The guy who wrote, let the peace of Christ rule in your heart, also wrote something else in one of his other books, and it's this. Can't you guys read that? Okay. This is the example of when I do my own PowerPoint and Martha doesn't, because this is, okay, let me read this to you. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from the seas, in danger from the bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at seas, and in danger of being false believers. You see, I should do this in larger membership. I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have been naked. Besides everything else, I have faced daily the pressures and concerns for all my churches, or for all the churches, excuse me. This isn't a life of peace. How is it that Jesus and Paul can both be talking about peace in the midst of all this conflict, all the conflict that Paul mentions here, and the fact that Jesus was in constant conflict with the Pharisees and Sadducees? He died a very violent death, and I don't even want to talk about the cleansing of the temple, which was Jesus being angry, and Paul in prison several times, beaten several times, and also died a violent death. How come these guys talk about peace, but lived a life amidst violence and threat and conflict? Does not make sense. I'd like to tell you a story about a time I learned something about peace. And again, like you guys are used to, this is a long story, so just, settle in. I was in seminary, and the date was September 11th, 2001. You guys probably also know exactly where you were at on that day. And I had classes stacked in the morning. I had Hebrews, which was another type of violence altogether for me to study Hebrews. And then I had philosophy of Christian religion. Right after that, we had a semi-mandatory chapel. And I went in the chapel, and I should tell you that this is way before the days of iPhones. This is before the days of Wi-Fi. And I sat in the back where I usually sat in church services, kind of in the middle. And the chaplain for the seminary walks on stage and just interrupts everybody really solemnly. Says, okay, obviously we're not doing our regular chapel service today. We're going to have an extended prayer service because of what has happened. And I had no idea what had happened. And I looked around, and there's nobody around me that I know well enough to ask questions to. So I'm there in a worship service, in a prayer service with a whole bunch of seminarians, and I should add my professors. So I didn't want to cause a ruckus. And so we had a prayer service, and people are crying, people are upset, and I don't know why. And I'm really confused, and I'm frustrated, and half of me is trying to live into this prayer service while the other half of my mind is screaming, what has happened? I don't know what's going on. Like, what? It has to be really bad because of what's going on around me, but I don't know what it is. The prayer service lasted a really, really long time. And so after that, I ran home, and I lived off campus about a quarter mile, so I just kind of ran as quickly as I could home. Went and turned on the television. I had all 3 stations that were available in Wilmore, Kentucky. And I looked, and it was just the news. And they were saying that there had been something that happened in New York. We didn't know much. It was maybe a coordinated attack. Maybe it wasn't over. They didn't know what was going on. They were showing scenes that were confusing, and I didn't understand what was happening. And then I realized that neither did the news people. And neither did my seminary chaplain. We didn't know what was going on. Nobody seemed to know what was going on. It was a confusing day. And so I did what I sometimes still do, but I try to exercise now when I'm confused and when I'm frustrated, or when I just can't do anything else. I watched a movie. So I went to my box of VHS tapes. Yes, VHS. I know, I'm ancient. DVDs were around, but I was a seminary student and couldn't afford them. And so for those of you who are here, VHS tapes are magnetic tapes. They're about this big, just so you know, and they hold movies. And the gravest of sin is to not rewind. Just remember that. Really important. And so I selected a movie. I selected a movie called Air Force One. It was a 90s patriotic action film. Gary Oldman played a terrorist, and Harrison Ford played Harrison Ford. You know, always the same guy. But he happened to be president in this movie. And someday I'm going to meet Harrison Ford, and he's going to realize I said that about him, and I'm going to be really embarrassed. But Harrison Ford gives a speech as president in like the first 5 minutes of this movie. And at the very beginning of that speech, he says this line. He says that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. I'd owned this movie. I'd seen this movie, but I had never recognized that line before. And so as the movie continued, and it's not a bad movie, I kept kind of replaying that line in my head. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of justice. And today I realize that Hollywood, as it does, got it half right. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Paul and Jesus alone prove that. But peace is more than just the presence of justice in our lives. Peace is the presence of something greater. The word peace biblically comes from a word shalom. And the easiest translation and the most convenient for shalom is peace. But it's so much more than that. Shalom is a sense of wholeness, a sense of completeness, wellness, perfection, rest. One of my favorite descriptions of the word shalom is equilibrium. And we have found rest and peace and a state in which we can trust and be at peace. And that's why shalom is translated peace. So today, as we go forward, the idea of what peace is in our life is not the absence of conflict. Conflict is around us. We're not going to stop it. But it's the presence of something so much greater. It's the presence of the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God of all creation in our lives. I got one more verse for you. This is an Old Testament verse. It's a prayer. This is Isaiah 26:3. And you will keep in perfect peace those minds who are steadfast because they trust in you. This is Christmas. This is the time of the exchanging of gifts. I don't know about you guys, but I have a cousin and I have my mother, and no matter what I get them for Christmas, they always win. They get me something better than I get them. I have a feeling that I can spend all year thinking and praying and researching for what my mom wants and desires for Christmas. And no matter how much work I do, she will still get me something better than what I got her. She'll win it. I have a cousin who's just exactly the same. No matter what I do, no matter how much I spend, how much I think this is exactly perfect for them, they've done more. And they win Christmas every year. It's the same with Christ. You see, Christ asks for our trust, and in response, gives us peace. We're asked to trust the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving creator of the universe, and in response gives us peace. But he doesn't stop there. Because once you have the peace of Christ, the rest of this wreath and the candles that it represents come along. You give trust, you get peace, and you get love, hope, and joy with it. Pray with me, please.